back onto the program. Welcome back to Caravan to Midnight for the second time. Tatiana Moroz, a soulful and outspoken singer-songwriter. She is the premier artist in the Bitcoin and liberty activist communities. Following the release of several independently produced LPs, EPs, and singles, Tatiana's next album, Keep the Faith, set to be released early 2017. We'll find out, since it is early 2017, we'll find out in a minute if it's already out. It was funded with cryptocurrency, which is really different. Her music is a fresh take on the folk style of the revolutionary 60s and 70s, an original blend of pop, rock, blues, and alternative country. Tatiana is the creator of Tatiana Coin, the first ever artist cryptocurrency. Tatiana Coin and other artist coins allow for connecting fans directly to artists in many ways. A driving force in the industry, she's also the founder of Crypto Media Hub, a PR, marketing, and advertising agency for the Bitcoin space. The Tatiana Moroz Show podcast streams on several outlets, including the Let's Talk Bitcoin network, and is quickly growing with thousands of listeners every week. She performs and speaks at blockchain technology and liberty conferences all over the world, including South by Southwest, NASDAQ, National Libertarian Party Convention, Freedom Fest, and Inside Bitcoins. She's appeared on Fox's Stossel, RT, InfoWars, Bitcoin Magazine, and many more. During her talks, she shares her journey as an artist and the many uses of Bitcoin. Topics range from blockchain technology to the Silk Road and Ross Ulbricht. There's a story on Ross here coming up pretty quick. The drug war and prison reform. She inspires people to be enthusiastic about the power of cryptocurrencies and teaches how Tatiana Coin can be adapted for other artists. Her talks are usually rounded out with a musical performance, relating back to the causes that drive her passion. Tatiana, good to have you back.
Thank you for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Well, you're positively glowing. You look happy. Everything's going your way, I take it?
Yes, everything is going my way, but along the way there's a lot of hiccups and stuff, but I've learned to kind of roll with the punches, I guess.
Well, that's the music business. That's the rock and roll business. The easiest part of the whole gig is the 2 hours you're on stage. It's the rest of it that's a nightmare, right?
I would say so. That's pretty accurate.
Well, let's see her website, if we have not already. Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, I'm in the pod. You know, I've got so many screens up, it's ridiculous, both externally and internally. So what's been going on since we last spoke? I know that you're busy all the time. You're not exactly sitting around eating chocolates and sipping drinks with little hats in them day and night. So where you been? We haven't talked in, 6 months, something?
Yeah, it's definitely been a while. So I am in Florida right now. I'm actually at my grandma's house because I just did my launch, which we'll talk about in Fort Lauderdale. So I just got in a couple days ago. I missed all the big snow in New York, but I have been all over the place. In November, I did a really big tour. I went to Buenos Aires. I sang in Amsterdam, in London, in Berlin, and then also in Warsaw. I don't know. I'm traveling so much. It's so hard to keep track of everything. But then I did, a big talk in Ohio, which was really nice. And, it's been great, traveling around, spreading the message of liberty. And I've been doing a lot of speaking, which is a little bit outside my wheelhouse, but it's great because I'm getting a little bit more structure in that regard, which is nice.
I just have to ask you about something, and that is, you're part of the liberty movement. And you're an artist, and generally artists are most artists, probably because a lot of them just know they can get some play out of it. I don't know how many of them actually believe it, but they have more left-leaning ideologies, and I don't get that from you at all.
No, I'm not that way. I mean, I'm a libertarian at heart, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. Everybody knows that that's the way that I lean. I actually think that it's very stifling in the music industry that everything is so overly liberal and left leaning. In fact, if you speak out against it, you're sort of blackballed. This is a well-known fact in Hollywood. I was just speaking with somebody the other day about it. So it's very frustrating, but I also think that culture is influenced by, art and everything in our society. So if we're only getting one view, how are we going to have an honest conversation? How are people going to actually come up with some solutions if you can't even speak freely? The funny thing about that sort of leftist perspective is they claim to be very tolerant until you disagree with them. And then, you're sort of labeled all sorts of different things, and there's not a chance for people to intelligently discuss something because free speech is shut down. And that's been something I've been very aware of all my life. And my work has really been to help liberate artists and not make them so dependent on that system that stifles them.
Yeah, it's funny. It's the proverbial slippery slope, because once you decide to, I understand that art is part and parcel to any kind of a movement, let alone a revolution. I get that. I know that going all the way back to the medieval days in particularly England, there were certain chord progressions that were banned because they evoked. Oh, you didn't want to do an AC a GD all major, 4/4 progression. No, because this would you will never hear that progression in any of the music of that era, because it evoked emotional response. And the Chinese forbade popular music for almost forever. It's lightened up starting in the late 90s, and it's a lot lighter now, but they don't like popular music because it makes people think about things that the establishment doesn't want them thinking about. But if you're an artist, I'm just tossing out a bunch of stuff, and you just pick anything that you want to address, if any of it. If you're an artist, it's like there are good artists and there are some really crap artists. But because they are artists, it's like, well, you have to listen to me because I'm an artist. It's like, okay, let's set that presumption aside for just a second. Now, if you're a really good artist and you have and you make good music and people respect you, then they not only there seems to be a difference between respecting an artist for their work and just liking their work. The difference between an icon and somebody who's just popular and maybe for, kind of forgotten about in 5 or 6 years, something. They'll just go by the wayside. But when somebody who's really good decides to make some sort of a stand politically, it seems, I don't understand why outside of the country western genre, it seems to be really dangerous for people in rock or hip hop or anything other than country. Anything other than country, which now is just rock and roll with twangy lyrics. It's dangerous for them. You have to go to the left, or your audience is going to start screaming at you. What's the deal there? What's the formula?
I don't like to get too conspiratorial because I don't know if that really wins people over. But when it comes to the arts, I absolutely am. I think that, I just watched the documentary about the Beatles a couple days ago, one of the many, I guess, right? And I think it was called 8 Days a Week. Anyway, I don't remember. But one of the things that I kept thinking about watching John Lennon, watching his evolution and then seeing him speak out, it was such a remarkable phenomenon, what he was able to do. And I'm sorry, but I think that there's something really, really confusing and mysterious about his death. I think that especially in the 60s, which is a genre, the singers and songwriters of that generation are huge inspiration to me. Cat Stevens is why I'm here today. But, I think that the system, right, the powers that be, saw that these artists had such a great power, and they really kind of tightened the reins on that. And they don't want an artist that's going to go out and speak. And I think that Hollywood and government are, they complement one another in certain ways, right? Because Hollywood is the propaganda arm for the government. So they want to have certain types of thought, and they don't want to encourage other types of thought. And they've done a very good job. A friend of mine, she called it a cultural Marxism. And I really liked that expression because they've basically hijacked something that should be very colorful, and it should have a lot of different types of voices and a lot of different types of ideas. And they've siphoned it into its own little You can only think within this little parameter. And if you walk out, we're going to smack you down. And it's been very, very apparent. And I have friends in the music industry that are libertarian, or they lean that way, or maybe they're on the right and they're more conservative, and they will not talk about it out loud because they're afraid that they're going to get blacklisted because it's happened before and it'll keep happening. So my solution has been to try and come up with other ways for artists and their fans to connect, because there are people that value my message, and they love to see that represented. I am the embodiment of their views. And so they want to support me. But a lot of the technology that we have today continues to keep us apart, even as it claims to keep us together. So I think that, we're heading into a new era where hopefully we will be able to free the art, bring it back to the people, and not have it be something that's controlled all the time.
I've got a couple of notes here.
Sure.
What were we talking about before we actually started rolling here about something about tampering?
Oh, sure. Well, yeah. So I guess in context, let's put that in context. Yeah. So, for people who are not familiar with my work, I'm putting out a new album called Keep the Faith on March 31st. And on February 9th, we launched a crowdfunding campaign. And the crowdfunding campaign is being powered by Tatiana Coin, which is the first ever artist cryptocurrency. So we have a lot of action going on in that regard. But I don't know if you want me to talk about Tatiana Coin more, or do you want me to talk about the album cover? Because I think that really illustrates why artist coins are so important.
I want you to talk about all of it.
Okay, great. So let's break it down, and then I'll tie it back to the album cover.
All right.
I was very interested in Ron Paul, and then I found out that politics was rigged, and then I wasn't as interested in trying to change things by using, or by appealing to government. I thought that wasn't very useful, and why they have no incentive in order to give us our freedoms, other than worrying that people will revolt or something. So I got very involved with cryptocurrency, including Bitcoin. And then what I wanted to solve was this very problem that we're talking about, how artists are not free to speak out. They have to go in this little box. So we created the first ever artist cryptocurrency. So the way that works is with a traditional crowdfunding campaign, if you donate $50, you get a t-shirt. And if you don't like that t-shirt, well, tough luck, you're going to have to take that t-shirt because you can't get anything else. And with the artist coin, basically you're buying a digital gift certificate, sort of. So you will pay $50 and now you'll get $50 worth of Tatiana coins. You can use them in my store whenever you want. You can send them to your friends if you want to break it up. You can sell them to somebody else if you don't want to support me anymore, but you're like, oh, I don't need these coins, I'm going to sell them. So you could do a lot of things that are a lot more flexible. And this puts me in direct contact with my fans, because now once they have a Tatiana coin, we're linked together. There's nobody in between us. There's no middleman, right? And this was something that was critical, because when I was younger, I started out on Friendster, and I went to MySpace, and I went to Facebook, and I was so excited about the ability to reach my fans and not have to spend money, because artists have no money. So as I moved from platform to platform, I did learn that there were some problems with these platforms, which is that you lose your fans every single time you change platforms. You have to go out and you have to build up a whole new audience. And then when I was on Facebook, even though I have, let's say, 6,300 likes on my Facebook page, now when I make a post, 50 people see it, because Facebook wants me to pay them. But in the meantime, they've collected this audience. Yes, they provide a platform, but the audience came from me. They wanted to see me. And now I'm separated from them again. And now every time I want to reach somebody, I have to pay up. And they change the terms all the time. Plus, they spy on you. They brainwash everybody with their weird posting stuff. I have a lot of problems with Facebook. I'm not a fan of the way that they treat their customers, which are really, we're what they're selling. We are the product. And this was repugnant to me. Yeah. So Facebook is the one that charges a lot of money, and all these platforms, they do provide some sort of a, they provide a connection point, but they also provide a gateway between you and your fans. So as a result of creating this artist token, we needed to create a place where we could all hang out, right? Okay, you have my coin, that's great, but what about more? How can we connect more? So what we've developed is a way for people to communicate with me directly. We could have instant messaging to each other. So now you could message with your favorite artist directly. You can message with the fans. You can get special VIP experiences, maybe an online concert that's only for my super fan club. And there's all these kinds of different ways that we can engage with one another. We also help solve the problem of the record and the digital age. So when you used to have an album, a physical album, if you buy that album, you can give it to your friend, you could sell it, you could lend it to somebody. They had all this mobility. But now, if you get your music on iTunes, I can't share a song with my friend because iTunes won't let me do that. I'm basically purchasing a license for iTunes, and I'm the only user, and that's not very good. There's not really a incentive for people to own music. They could just stream it. But with streaming, you're still kind of disconnected. It's a little bit of a mess, right? So what we've created, and with digital albums, the problem is that they're not a finite thing. But because of the power of blockchain technology and because of this like cryptocurrency stuff, you've now created a finite digital item. So you can buy a Tatiana album token and you could lend it to your friend. You could sell it to somebody. You could lease it to someone. And there's all these different functions. So you've basically been given back the old model, but you're not screwing over the artist, and you have the convenience of having it be in a digital form. Does that make sense? I know it gets a little bit funky in there. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense.
Okay, good.
It's not something that somebody would just kind of come up with on their own. This is very instructive.
Yeah, well, it was something that me and Adam Levine from Let's Talk Bitcoin, we kind of brainstormed on it to solve those problems that I was seeing for artists. There's a lot of different ways to use blockchain technology. A lot of people like to register work on the blockchain, and that's great because you can see who did what, and you have ownership, and you can give people each their splits of what they're owed, but a lot of artists, they don't ever get to that point where they're getting royalties. They need to basically be funded, and they have to find their tribe. And so those are the problems that we're solving. Yes, we're still registering your work. We have very transparent payouts because record labels, obviously, they don't want to tell you how they're spending your money, and you're paying them back for the rest of your life. So yeah, basically, we have transparent payments, and we allow the artists to set the terms. If they want to use our platform for streaming, and they're using token.fm, which will be launching next month, they get 80% of the profit. So they're getting 2 cents a stream. If you're on YouTube or Spotify, you're getting 0.001 cents per stream. So if your song is played on Spotify or any of these large streaming platforms, for 1 million views, you get a million plays, you get only $1,000. Whereas on our platform, if you have 1 million plays, you'd get $20,000. So it's a pretty significant leap. And I think that that's a lot more fair. I mean, artists, it's not cheap. It's not free to make music. There's a lot of expenses. And I think that fans understand that too. So we're hoping that this is something that gives fans much more. It makes them feel like they're part of something, which is lacking, I think, in the world, right? People are totally disconnected, even though we're all online. There's some sort of I don't know, there's a little bit of an emptiness of the soul, I think. And I think music fills that. So if we can kind of connect in a real legitimate way and not have somebody else bossing us around and ripping us off and spying on us, I think that that's an amazing way to move forward.
I'm really trying to, I hate it when I'm trying to understand something and all of a sudden it feels like you've got some giant rubber bands in the gears of your brain. Can you just give everybody, me included, just a simple definition of what the heck a blockchain is? What does that actually mean?
Sure. Well, blockchain explaining it is kind of weird and complicated.
Okay,
So I'm going to
good.
make it the really easy version.
Well, I'm happy to know it's
So,
complicated because I was feeling like a moron here for a minute.
oh, no, no, no. Listen, blockchain is so hard to understand. It took me a year of having Bitcoins before I even really understood what the heck I was talking about. So that's why I always ask, are there any questions? And that's why actually I like being an advocate for it, because I hopefully don't make people feel stupid, because I know that I felt really stupid when I first started it. And nobody likes that. And you're not going to get people in that way. So the way that Bitcoin works is it's a protocol. So it's not just the coin itself. It's secured by all these computers doing all this math stuff, right? And there's no central authority. And because everybody else is able to look at what's going on, there's no way you can defraud anyone. It's very, very secure, right? Everything is kind of locked down. When people talk about the blockchain, they're talking about those mathematical kind of computations, and they're all recorded somewhere. So it's almost like a ledger. Think of it that way, like a massive Excel sheet that everybody can see. And if I move money or information from here to there, everybody sees it. And that's where it's all stored, on that big blockchain. Does that make sense?
And where is this blockchain located?
It's on the internet. So it's basically stored on all these different people's computers that are
Okay.
running a node.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how it works.
All right. And how did these people get together to sort of co-monitor this blockchain? How do they come to an agreement to even do this? How do they contact each other? In other words, how does this happen? How does this come into being?
Okay, so what happened was in I think it was early 2009, late 2008, right after the big crash, the financial problem that we had. Satoshi Nakamoto put out a white paper, and it went out to all these cryptocurrency people that just like it, because they've been using cryptography for a long time, and they've kind of been trying to figure out how to have a digital currency online that's actually secure. So this guy, Satoshi Nakamoto, which actually we don't even know if it's a guy. It could be a woman. It could be a team of people. Nobody knows. It's just Satoshi Nakamoto. We've never seen this person or interviewed them or anything. No one knows their identity. Came out with a white paper, and people started reading it, all these kind of computer guys, and they all liked it. And so people started hearing about it, and they started mining, which means that they volunteered their computer power in order to do these calculations. And it was, at the time, the coins were, worth like a penny or less. So obviously the people that were mining them, not so obviously, I guess. So the people that were mining them, the reason why they would do it is because they would get these coins as a reward. So, every like 10 minutes or 20 minutes or every 10 minutes, they would give out a bunch of Bitcoins to people, and people would get them. And then as the price went up, more people were incentivized to do the mining, because now they want to make money off of it too, right? So hopefully that explains it. I try and stay away from the technology because it's not my wheelhouse. And I think that sometimes it's like, do you want to know about how the engine works in the car, or do you want to know that the car is going to get you to work every day on time? So to me, I focus on the car is going to get you to the mall. The car is going to get you to your friend's house. I'm not the mechanic. But when people talk about blockchain, they're talking about that big ledger where you can keep your stuff and where everybody can look at it. And that's what makes everything secure.
And one more time, who is Nakamoto?
Nobody knows.
Oh, gotcha.
So, yeah. So Satoshi Nakamoto is just this mystery person.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, well, you said
and
that.
it could be a bunch of people. We don't know. But, because this currency serves as such a big challenge, this innovation is such a challenge to the state, it's not surprising that he doesn't want anybody to know his identity. Different people have claimed to be him. I don't think that they are. But, I think that it's a safety thing and also a privacy thing. So nobody knows.
We don't hear much about it. I just saw this thing about I mean, this is not even very many hours old. And it says China used to dominate global Bitcoin trading. This is from QZ.com. Used to dominate global Bitcoin trading, but not anymore after a series of interventions by the Chinese central bank and self-imposed restrictions by Chinese exchange operators. The share of the global Bitcoin trade denominated in yuan has plummeted from over 95% to about 20%. So, and the reason I'm bringing this up is we have the idea that somehow Bitcoin is separated from central banks, but how separated can it be? When if we go down here in Dallas, down to there's an outfit on Commerce Street where you can buy and sell Bitcoin down there, but buy and sell them with what? Oh, currency. And where does the currency come from? Oh yeah, central bank ultimately. So I'm just wondering how separated from the conventional mercantile system are we really?
So Bitcoin is a very new technology, right? So when the internet started out, it wasn't, the internet of 1995 is very different from the internet of 2017.
Oh, yeah.
So we're kind of growing, right? Got to think of it that way. But the goal is to eventually, if people want to pay only with Bitcoin, they will be able to. And there's been a lot of advancements in that. When it comes to governments getting involved, well, there's a couple different things. Let's talk about government getting involved with crypto first, right? So the government can say to a business in America and say, you have to have AML, KYC, you have to basically get all this information on people. And that's like a concern because some people like the privacy that you can get with Bitcoin. Some people don't care and they like the ease of use with these companies. The company can be forced to shut down by the government if they, because that happens. But if I have a Bitcoin wallet on my phone and you have a Bitcoin wallet on your phone, the government can't stop that transaction because then they would just have to stop everybody. So these companies are making it easier for people to get in and out of cryptocurrency. But if you don't want to participate in them, nobody's going to be able to stop you, right? And also what that does when a country cracks down on the Bitcoin companies is that they're just driving the business somewhere else. Because Bitcoin is a global currency, if the United States, for example, doesn't want to have some Bitcoin stuff going on wherever they make it a hassle, people can go to Singapore, they can go to Hong Kong, they can go to Argentina, they can go to any other country in the world and set up shop there. So they're really driving out innovation and they're driving out businesses. So it's actually not a good idea for them to do that. And what's great for the Bitcoin community is that, yes, that's annoying, but there are other options. You're not locked in. So if the government of the United States made Bitcoin illegal tomorrow, it still wouldn't do anything because Bitcoin would still be legal in all over the world. So basically, and even the enforcement would be very difficult. A lot of businesses take it, but cashing in and out of the US dollar is definitely a little bit tricky. I like to do it privately. So I have friends that want to buy Bitcoins and there's different websites like localbitcoins.com where you can meet with other people that are local and you could sell it and you can do whatever. So there's definitely ways around the regulatory environment. And as far as it participating with the state currency, yeah, I think that still is something that, we can't avoid. But it is getting easier. And as more people are accepting it, there's no need to get out of the US dollar into a Bitcoin and out. You know what I mean? You won't really have to do that. One way that I do my payments, for example, is I have a Shift card and BitPay also has a card. They're basically debit cards. So I go to the mall, I want to buy something. I use my Shift card. The person there doesn't even know that I just paid with Bitcoin at all. It's like $40. Okay, well, swipe it. It takes out $40 worth of Bitcoin right then and there. And then that's it. And then it's pretty seamless. So anywhere that accepts credit cards, I can use my Bitcoins.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
it makes it super easy because before you used to have to go to a place and it was like total hassle. I'm not going to lie because, Bitcoin is not, it has a lot of great developments, but it's not at its full flourishing glory, right? It still has a lot of venture capital money and there's a lot of a lot of work goes into it. But it's a really cool space because a lot of different kinds of minds are coming together. A lot of different industries converge and they can take advantage of this technology. Just like the internet is for everybody, Bitcoin is for everybody, and blockchain technology is for everybody. So different kinds of, projects, they get involved and they can sort of adopt the technology for their industry, and it makes it a very vibrant space because of that.
If this thing became, this is a two-part question, or maybe a comment and a question. I understand the value of the individual Bitcoin is going up.
Yes.
Like all the time.
It is. It's a very volatile currency, much less so than it used to be. But, if people can. So there are some people in the cryptocurrency space that say that you shouldn't speculate with Bitcoin. I think that those people must be very financially well off because I love it when Bitcoin goes up. I don't know what these people are talking about. I think it's very exciting. But if you want to buy Bitcoin and you think that it's going to go up in value, you just can't give yourself a heart attack checking the price every day.
Yeah.
Because one day it's 920, the next day it's 980, the next day it's 1040, and then the next day it's 970. So you don't want to look at it every day, but what you can do is you can look at it year to year. And basically since its inception, with the exception of 2014, I think, it's been the best performing currency in the world. So that's pretty impressive. It outperformed any kind of like fiat currency. And I think it was doing better than even gold and silver in terms of its appreciation. So, and I also like that, you talk about getting off of the state, right? And, this is something I'm very passionate about. But if your money is not being held in dollars, sure, you still have to pay taxes. You still have to, be their little tax slave. You can't get out of that. But if you store your value in Bitcoin, it is a bit of it's like a rebel move. And that's why I like to keep my money in Bitcoin, because I think of it as a political statement that actually has weight. Because as more people start getting off of the dollar, you're taking away the power from the war machine. And this is, the Bitcoin jingle, which I recorded. And mind you, this whole new record, Keep the Faith, was funded completely with cryptocurrency donations. The Bitcoin jingle, the opening line is, I didn't want to give any of my money to a nation based on war. And that's what I'm talking about. If we don't have control of money, we don't have control of anything, because they can just print more and keep bombing the hell out of everybody. So I think that, anything that we can do to actually hit them where it hurts in the pocketbook is productive. Whereas some of this protesting stuff is great, but you're basically just asking them to change, and they don't want to change because they don't like to change. They like being in power and they like being the overlords. So they have no incentive to do anything.
That was really a genius thing you just said. It really was. And I'm going to quote you in future, I'm sure. No, seriously, I wonder how many people have really thought about this, Tatiana. If we're not in control of money, we're not in control of anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's our value. There's a line in the song where I say, I used to cry to myself that we didn't have a chance, but Nakamoto came along with more than a song and gave the labor back to man. I am a strong believer in the power of music. I mean, this has driven me my entire life. But to be given and to have the fruits of your labor is beyond even what music can accomplish. I think it's one of the most incredible innovations of our time and potentially in the history of mankind, because we've all been under the boot for a very, very long time. We've been dependent on on all sorts of things that we don't necessarily need to, and we're being stolen from all the time. So how can we possibly get out of that if we don't have control of how we're going to, feed ourselves? How are we going to, feed our families? These kinds of things.
So just so the simplest of us, I did say us, can track with this, you have your Bitcoin wallet, and let's say you load that thing up. You have your entire personal fortune on this thing. Okay, this is just the interface between you and your stored wealth, which exists on the internet. Is that effectively it?
Yes, that's right. But you wouldn't keep all your money in one place. Like if you had a bunch of cash, right? You wouldn't just put it all in one place and be like, okay, because a thief can come and grab it, right? And now, even though, and this is, but with Bitcoin, you would kind of diversify. You'd put it here, you'd put it there, you'd put it there, and you'd make sure that all your money isn't in one place. But the difference, a lot of people are worried about security with Bitcoin because they hear all these stories about millions of dollars were hacked. They're not hacking Bitcoin, the system. They're hacking, it's like a social engineering thing. So it's like somebody whose password is password, right? Or it's somebody who doesn't remember to write down their password. You have to have a lot of personal responsibility when you're dealing with Bitcoin. It's not a huge deal, but it does require some extra steps. I think in the long run, the payoff is much better, but it's not like, boom, you're going to be a Bitcoin security master. I mean, basically, just don't lose your passwords, right? But you'd be surprised at how many people lose their passwords. And you also want to make sure that the site that you're getting your wallet from or the wallet provider is somebody who is reputable and it's not some weirdo thing. And you could do that by doing some internet research. People can come to my website, TatianaMoroz.com. And there's a Bitcoin blockchain resources kind of thing. We just did some changes. I got to actually make sure that's still there, but it should be where I think that it is. And basically, I created a video series on my YouTube, Forevermore Tatiana, of Bitcoin 101, and it walks you through. It helps you figure out some of the stuff. And I actually did it with a girlfriend because I find, so when I first started doing Bitcoin, I had guys explaining it to me. And when men try and explain things, they try and make it sound more complicated because, it's human nature, right? They want to kind of be like, oh, look at me. And they make it horrible.
Yeah,
they make it so girls don't want to hear it anymore.
Right.
Like, you don't want to hear about technology from a guy who's trying to impress you with how smart he is. So I did the video series with a girlfriend of mine, and we think that having two females, and I don't mind taking the hits. If I don't understand something, I'll say it. And I think that that's actually an advantage. Because then if somebody else is in the audience, they're not like, oh, my God, what are they talking about? And then they tune out. Because nobody wants to feel stupid, right?
Yeah.
So, I think that the questions are good. But getting back to the security issue, just make sure that you're really good with your security. I have a friend, Pamela Morgan. She does these awesome articles. She is one of the best speakers about Bitcoin, in my opinion. And the way that she's going through right now, she's creating a series of them on Medium about how to keep your Bitcoin safe and how to be secure. It's totally worthwhile. And some of the things like two-factor authentication, which I've been learning about, are really necessary for all different kinds of use cases, right? It's not just for Bitcoin. It's to keep your email secure. It's to keep your banking information secure. We don't like to think about those kinds of issues. I certainly don't. I'm a mess, but I mean, it's really necessary. And in a way, I think it's good. I think personal responsibility overall is something that our society lacks, and I like to see a trend going in that direction.
All right, let me just take a moronic example, which describes a moronic act. Somebody says, "Okay, I've had it. Civil unrest is going to sweep the country. I'm leaving. I'm not hanging around for this. I'm going to Liechtenstein. Nothing ever happens over there. So I'm just going to grab my passport and my Bitcoin wallet and split." And now, it's like, well, how much do you have stored on this Bitcoin wallet? It's like, none of your business. Well, we're going to confiscate that. If somebody takes your Bitcoin wallet away, like the little keep key. By the way, your friend hooked me up instantly. What a nice guy.
Yeah, they're awesome over there. They're really cool. I'm glad that happened. Cool.
Yeah, very, very cool guy. What happens if somebody goes, "Give me that"? Now what?
Okay, so you don't have to keep your Bitcoins on a keep key, right? You can keep your Bitcoins in an online location, so it's not even on your phone, or you can keep it on your phone, right? So that's sort of one thing. If somebody were to take your keep key, they have to kind of beat you up in order to get you to give them the password, because without the password, it's useless. And keep key has a way where if you lose that little keep key, you can log in from a different location. Like, they'll help you recover your keys. So the only way that somebody can actually steal your physical Bitcoins is if they have your password. So as long as your password is safe, you're fine. And then there's other ways where you can kind of have a third, it's called multi-sig. So that means that that me, you, and Kenny we all sign off before the transaction goes. So even if somebody's, found you, they're beating you up, they're like, give me all your Bitcoins. If you have multi-sig, then they can't actually get them because it's physically impossible without me signing off on it and without Kenny signing off on it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So in other words, you just tell them, I don't think I remember the password. Come across that password. The password is ZXY23475, go jump in the lake. Right?
I was like wondering, I'm like, are you sharing your password on the air? But yeah, exactly. And they're not going to know. I mean, yes, the TSA is very excessive, but so far they're not checking people's phones, and it's actually cool because, they say you can't, I shouldn't advocate this, but you can't leave the country with $10,000 or more without telling them or whatever.
That's what I was getting at. It might be a problem.
They don't really know about what you're doing with your Bitcoins. So, I don't see that being a problem anytime soon. There was a case where somebody had like some Bitcoin pins or something, like promotional ones, and they tried to steal them from him, the NSA or the TSA, and they totally didn't understand what it was. So, for now we're safe.
Would you mind just social media, these social media platforms, do you get, I can't imagine that you do, but I have to ask anyway, people think that it's okay to type with their middle fingers and just hurl all this vitriol just whenever they want to. While I can't imagine that you are subjected to very much of that, I really suspect that you are, simply because you're more libertarian than progressive. Do you catch any heat over social media for that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that there's a lot of trolly kind of nasty people out there. I don't know how much of it I get compared to other people, but I certainly do. I did a gig about a month ago, and I was really concerned about doing the gig because it was for the Deplorable. And the Deplorable was the people who are kind of like Milo and all those guys, right? They're kind of right-wingers, and they're maligned a lot of times as racist. I've actually seen some of their stuff. I don't think it seems very racist. I think that they're just not leftist, so they're being labeled that way. But I was unsure because I didn't really pay attention to the presidential election this time around. I did think it was better that Donald Trump won over Clinton. And I know that that's a very hot button topic. I mean, people lose their minds if you say anything that's even remotely like, I'm not saying Trump is the greatest guy, but anything would have been better than Hillary. So when I decided to do the gig, I was up for 2 days. I was crying. I was like, I don't know if I should do this because I was afraid that my attendance and my music would be viewed as this racist thing, which my message doesn't change. I'm singing about peace and freedom, people, relax, and equality. So, it was very disconcerting, but I did decide to do it because I think that it's the right thing to do. I think that if we're going to be singing in an echo chamber, we're only going to hear ourselves and we're not going to grow the space. And I was very happy that I went because the people there were wonderful. They were freedom lovers. They were people that wanted to make America great again. I know this is like a laughed at tagline, but I think that there's something really beautiful about people wanting to come together and reinvigorate these values that are what people around the world love about America. I guess Doug Casey says something like, you don't have to be an American in order to be an American in your heart, because the ideas are really what's beautiful. And what I found was people that didn't understand what I was doing were just calling me, all sorts of things. I didn't get nearly as much as I thought, but there were a lot of people that were disappointed. And it hurts, I want to have a thicker skin. I'm an artist. I suck at that. But I do think that, you have to do what's in your heart. And I think that a positive message of peace and freedom should be welcome in any kind of place. And if people don't like it, well, you can't please everybody. And I would love to see people say things to my face instead of just saying them on the internet, because you can just write whatever you want and just unleash these bombs just because you don't agree with somebody. Um, it's challenging, but I try and kind of look past it. And people say that if you're making people mad, then you're doing something right. So I don't know if that's true, but my message doesn't change. I care about the same things. Of course we all evolve, but the essence it has not changed. And if people don't like it, tough luck.
Yeah, it's just people that just put out music, you would think that would be fairly innocuous, fairly harmless, but it's not true. I mean, look at poor old Keith Emerson, the famous keyboardist of Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and also Emerson, Lake and Powell. He shot himself in the head because he felt like he could not perform up to his fans' expectations. He'd been having trouble with the arm. I think it was like multiple arm surgeries because he was just a great.
I don't know this story, by the way. This is horrible.
Oh, he shot himself in the head. And these people were going on social media going, I wish he'd just quit playing, and blah, blah, blah. It's like, you just want to slap him and go, you insensitive little bleep, let's hear a couple of your songs, pal. Let's hear how good your music is. Before you do that, he killed himself. And then one of the guys with the Allman Brothers got into money troubles. This is a little bit different deal, but he was making enough dough. He could have done this. He shot himself right in front of his wife. I mean, and then we had this fellow named Chris Cortlander on. He got raided. Now get this. He's up in, this is just a side story. You might be interested in this. He's up in Garryowen, Montana. And as it turns out, I had this premonition. I'm your announcer, Gary Owens, right? With the little Ronan Martin's laugh in from back in the Stone Age. And I thought, the guys who named their bands, things like Uriah Heep and Jethro Tull and Steppenwolf, they knew who those characters are, So I wonder if Gary Owen, if that's really not his name, but if he decided that was a very interesting name for a town where Sitting Bull and General Custer got it on, and it turns out to be true. Well, the long and the short of it is, because this man, Cortlander, owns this town and, preserves this Native American heritage, he gets raided by a bunch of Bureau of Land Management dudes with machine guns and stuff. They're screaming at everybody, and they did it over a button and a suspender buckle. And a bunch of other people got harassed also, and 4 of them committed suicide because they were under so much intense government prosecution, pressure, and threat of jail and losing their whole lives and everything. They killed themselves. So let this be a message to anybody who's catching this program that's not a Caravaner, because, I suspect we got a couple of moles in there somewhere, but 99 point, add about 6 nines behind, to the right of the decimal point. They're all extremely cool people, but you're going to have a bad apple in there somewhere. If you've got blood on your hands, you've got blood on your hands. It doesn't matter if you use a knife, a gun, or your mouth, or your keyboard. The blood's on your hands, and it's on record somewhere, just like that Bitcoin's out there in cyberspace somewhere. That Bitcoin exists, and what you did, that exists too, and there's going to be payback for that. If not in this life, then certainly in the next. So remember it and beat it down a little bit. You're not entitled to assault people like that just because you can, because it would be an entirely different matter if you were face to face, wouldn't it? Okay, sorry, I'm done with my rant. That was a little redneck.
No, I mean, it's a very serious topic. And, you talk about free speech. There is free speech, and hate speech is bad and whatever. But just because there is free speech doesn't mean that you just have a license to say whatever you want, because there's some sort of morality involved. And I think that people lose that sense of morality and responsibility for what they're saying when they're online. So even though I'm a big advocate, it's like, Ron Paul says, drugs should be legal. It doesn't mean that everybody should go out and do them, though. You know what I mean? You still have to have some sort of a responsibility for what you're doing and to do the right thing. And bullying people online, and people don't realize how much their words can really hurt somebody. You don't know what that person's going through. And I mean, then again, we're all not really perfect, right? And sometimes you lose your temper and you say something you don't mean, but it is something good to be cognizant of, especially with public figures, because, people are still people at the end of the day. They still go to the bathroom, they get up in the morning, they put on their pants, like they have feelings. So, hopefully people can be a little bit more sensitive
I'll
to
tell
that.
you, this sociology thing is just an ongoing battle to try to understand what we will tolerate and what we will not. And by the way, what do you make of this conduct out at UC Berkeley, a notorious hive of military-industrial complex activity, and always has been, particularly according to Dr. Daryl Hamamoto, who's UC Davis out there, and he's under a lot of pressure himself just because he doesn't want to toe the official communist line. Well, what do you make of these people that flipped out over Milo?
I think that they're not winning any prizes. So this Milo guy, he's a real lightning rod for controversy. And I don't agree with everything that he says, but I think I agree with a lot of the stuff that he says. And the problem is that they're like emotional animals. They're not even listening to logic. Like, they're not listening to the words. They're just listening to their feelings. And that's, there's a place for the heart. That's what the art, that's what art is for. But when you're trying to have an intelligent conversation and you're trying to stifle free speech but at the same time you're talking about your side having the moral high ground, I mean, there's so many problems there. I think that if people want to protest, that's great. They should protest all they want, but they need to behave. They can't be just wild animals that are just, trashing things. And I think that is being funded by Soros. I think that there's been some WikiLeaks that prove that that's going on. And it's not it's not making somebody say, wow, they rioted there, I should listen to that side. They're thinking, these people are wild animals. They need to simmer down. When I was in D.C., there was all this marching and there was all this violence going on, but these are just sore losers, and meanwhile, these racist monster people that liked Trump, they were perfectly fine. They were behaved, they were cool, they were open-minded. And that's what's so funny about it. The inability to have a rational discussion between the right and the left is fostering a much greater chasm in between. And I don't like to blame it completely on one side or the other. But in this case, the left is not accepting any kind of conversation. They don't want logic. They don't want facts. They just want it their way, or they're going to start throwing things. And they're not going to gain any respect doing that. So I don't know what they're playing at, but it doesn't seem to it seems to further the divide versus bridge the gap. And they talk about tolerance. They're completely intolerant of anybody else's views. And I think that it's really, really lousy.
Yeah, they march around the streets with their pro-LGBTQ, PDP, blah, 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 whatever it is this week. I mean, the amount of letters gets larger and larger. And I would have thought they'd given Milo a pass just because he was gay, but it's like, no. Then they'll start calling him queer and everything else, using a hateful tone of voice because his political orientation. Okay, oh, well, we're okay with your sexual orientation, or we were until we found out about your political orientation, and now you're just a faggot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This is the depth of these people's hypocrisy. And Tatiana, I'll tell you, it just makes my blood boil that these people have any kind of a platform at all. Here's the thing, and I went into this at the beginning of the program, and of course you couldn't hear it because you weren't on yet, but we don't like to have to punish people. Normal people, we want to have empathy. Maybe we even have a little sympathy that people can make a terrible mistake, and it's like, good grief, this is that was a terrible mistake, and now there's going to be a terrible consequence for it, and it saddens people. Nobody wants to lock somebody up for 20 years in some hellhole of a prison or have them execute or something like that. But, as somebody said one time, I'm sure this applies to women as well, but the statement was, a man has to be prepared to shoot his own dog if necessary, and should not expect that responsibility to be passed to someone else. Which means it's hurtful, even if your dog's got rabies and it's sick or you have to put it down. You don't want to do this, but it is your responsibility to do it. And sometimes responsibility is unpleasant. And I just wonder how much farther these people are going to be allowed to go before we realize, listen, we are looking at the destruction of our culture, and our civilization and our culture are inextricably linked. We're really on the verge of losing this if we decide, well, look, it's going to be just too much trouble to stop these leftists. I mean, there's going to be too much chaos. There's going to be too much violence. It's going to be too ugly. So what? You're going to let them have their way? And then what?
Well, this is, I mean, it ties back to Tatiana Coyne. To me, this is a solution because the culture is kind of what drives everybody's ideology. Like the art is kind of what makes people, the movies and large umbrella under art. This is how people's minds are shaped. So the first step in that regard, I think, is allowing artists to be funded directly by their fans, which is what we're doing with Tatiana Coyne, and then other artists who have whatever views they want. Then at least the culture is not just all one way. Because people who are on the left, they are genuinely good people. They don't think that they're advocating for something bad. Everybody likes to be tolerant. You know what I mean? It's not like, I don't know. I don't think that people, I want to back it up. I think that people are naturally tolerant and accepting of one another. Maybe not exactly. But you know what I mean? Like people do have empathy, just like you said. But the problem is that on the left, they're completely misguided. They think that they're doing something good, but they're doing something that is counterintuitive to their goals and their stated goals.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're willing to just say, oh, let it go, leave them alone. If somebody starts popping off, I remember.
Well, it's just impossible to have a conversation with people on the left. And okay, so I have a friend of mine. She's like a real leftist. It's very annoying. And we try and stay away from politics when we talk, but we're in this group chat. And she's always dropping in her political opinions. And I never say anything because I'm just going to get ripped to shreds if I have an argument with her. But she is so arrogant in the way that she's posting because she doesn't even realize that what she's doing is completely making everybody else's opinions like crap, and she's trying to invalidate them. And she's very arrogant. She's not right, first of all. And second of all, she shouldn't just assume that she is and that everybody who doesn't agree with her is, an idiot, a racist, a monster, whatever label that they come up with. And it's really disappointing and very, very annoying. And I haven't really figured out how to change the minds of those people. But that's why I made an Economics 101 video with Bob Murphy. Because, the people on the left, if they had a better understanding of Austrian economics and how money works and how businesses function, they would probably change their views on how to approach the problems that I think everybody's trying to solve, right? Nobody likes a bunch of poor people laying in the streets. I mean, people don't like that. People don't like to hear these horror stories, but they just don't really have an agreement about how to solve the problems. And I think that if you base it in economics versus, these kind of really quick decisions that people make, like, oh, well, people will make enough money, just raise the minimum wage. Well, actually, that's not a very good idea. And it would drive out more business. It would cause automation of things. I mean, there's all these unintended consequences. But because people haven't learned about that, they think that their obvious answer is the answer when there's a lot more under the hood that goes into something.
What about, freedom of speech and to reflect communities and culture and not corporate interests? The record labels have almost become irrelevant now, which is kind of good. But,
well, they're kind of not though, right? So somebody asked me yesterday, they're like, oh, why don't you go and play South by Southwest? Or why don't you go and do these kinds of conferences, these regional shows and stuff like that? You can't really get in there unless you have a major label. Like those kinds of things are still pretty entrenched. The music industry, people are still, it's shifting away. It's very do it yourself now, but then you have to do it yourself. So there has to be a balance between independents, and then also services provided by the industry itself. And unfortunately, if you want to get on the radio, you better have a lot of money, because you're not going to get on the radio unless you do. And the only people that have that kind of money is the big record labels. There's ways to kind of try and game it and build it up, but there is a pretty strong stranglehold on that stuff still, I would say. But that's why people are moving to the internet. That's why all these different technological innovations are making those old models irrelevant, but it's just not happening overnight, unfortunately.
Now, what about Ross Ulbricht and the drug war?
Okay, so when I recorded my album, I made a song called The Silk Road, because I became good friends with Ross's mother, Lynn Ulbricht, and then I went and I met with Ross, and now I'm friends with the whole family. They're my favorite people. So I created this song because I wanted to humanize his story, because what he did really was, and this is all alleged because he didn't have a chance to speak out in his own trial, right? We don't really know exactly what happened at all. But he created a free market website. And what that website allowed for was a great reduction in harm in the drug trade. So the intention was not to make a drug website, but it's a free market, and as long as it's something that's not hurting other people, you're allowed to purchase whatever you want. So you couldn't buy, stolen credit card numbers or something like that, because that hurts somebody else. But if it's drugs, you own your body, you could put into them whatever you want. And the way that it worked was, it was sort of like an Amazon or an eBay. So if you wanted to buy heroin, right, very bad, nobody should do heroin. But if you wanted to get it, if you get it on the street, you're going to go to some bad neighborhood, you might get shot, you might bring your weapon, it might accidentally kill somebody. I mean, there's all these bad things that go on with getting drugs in person. What you would do, and also you could buy bad heroin. So you would shoot up or whatever, and then you'd be dead, not because of the heroin, but because the heroin wasn't clean. So on this website, they had a rating system. So it says, okay, heroin from, Bobby is clean because he's got 5 stars. Jimmy has 3 stars. I don't think that's a good bet. Let's go with Bobby. And it was sort of, they did a study, and it showed that it significantly reduced the violence, and your chances of death were reduced by 5 times. So people know people that have drug problems. I'm not advocating for drugs. But if this is going to go on, as it has since the beginning of time, because that's humanity for you, right? We get sad, we want to fix it. This is a completely natural reaction. You have to try and reduce the amount of harm that's going to do in our society. The drug war is an abysmal, expensive, horrible failure. It is the source of many actual wars in this world. We've got troops set up guarding the heroin in Afghanistan. And the government operations that they can't get in a legal way are funded through these black markets. They love the black markets because they could do all sorts of sketchy stuff. They could steal from it. They could fund things that are not going to be popular. They could do whatever they want. And it's forced, basically, we talk about slavery being abolished. I don't know about that, because as far as I can tell, we have well over 2 million people sitting in cages. And if you don't do your work, then you get put in the shoe. They say that this whole working in a prison is voluntary. It's not voluntary. Give me a break. These are labor camps, and it's disgusting. And we have the most prisoners in our country than anybody else in the world. This is the land of the free? I don't think so. And the drug war is a big, component of that, right? The drug war has put all these people away from their families in prison for 20 years at a time for having a joint. I have one friend whose father got in trouble because he sold a teaspoon of cocaine to his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend, something weird like that. They put him in jail for over 40 years.
Oh, is that all?
40 years. This is disgusting. These people need treatment. They don't need to be thrown in a prison where some, prison industrial complex is flourishing off of the blood of these poor people. When I go and visit Ross in the prison, I see these little children. They're crawling all over their daddy. They're crying. They're so sad. The joy on their faces when they see each other, it's heart-wrenching. Not on my watch. That's the way that I look at it. And so when Ross made a picture of me, he's a very, very talented artist. He made a picture of me for my birthday, a drawing. And I decided to use that as the album cover of my new record, because I wanted that to be a talking point. I wanted people to say, what's up with your album cover? And now I have an opportunity where I can talk to them about not only Ross's case, but all of these other poor people that are being separated from their families, these communities being devastated. And now it's in a way where they're relating to it. They hear the song, they feel something. And when you feel something, you're opening a door into their heart. You're opening a door into their mind. And you can get in there and you could kind of change the way that they view something. So this is, to me, like a free speech thing. Artist coins enable that. And then the album cover, I wouldn't be able to do that if I was signed to a record label. They wouldn't like that. They don't want anybody who's rocking the boat unless it's to sing more about party, 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 right? They don't want to hear about somebody who's doing something serious and fun and also, amazing all at the same time. They don't want to have like their viewpoints challenged. They don't want to switch from that. This is the only acceptable way to view the world. The world is a beautiful, open place. So, when I get a chance to talk about my experiences going to the prison, I like to point out, for example, there's this lady there and she was talking about her children and how before their father went to prison, they were getting straight A's, they were doing great, they were wonderful children. Now they're getting D's and F's. Are you trying to tell me, is the system trying to tell me that that's a better result? Are those kids going to grow up and be functional members of society, or are they going to be a hot mess? They're going to just propagate this horrible, cycle of misery. They're not going to go out there. And I mean, sure, there's some that slip through the cracks and the adversity challenges them to be better and then they succeed. But a majority of these people are going to be forgotten and they're going to continue to fill the prisons and they're going to continue to be enslaved essentially. And I can't stand behind that. And I love that it's an issue that, it's something that a lot of different people can relate to. It's not as divisive as some other things that fall under a strictly left issue, a strictly right issue, because people all around the country are being affected by the drug war and by the prison industrial complex. And I think that music should be pushing out of that, because when I looked at, and also we should be able to do better than just a prison. If we have somebody out there and they do something bad, maybe we can come up with something better in terms of a solution, right? Instead of just, nope, they're bad, throw them in a cage, that's it, forget about them. I mean, that's ridiculous. We can't come up with anything better than prisons in all of these years. The first time I went and saw Ross, you don't sit, it's not like there's a piece of glass between you. You sit next to each other, right? So, you could like hold hands or whatever it is, right? But when he was leaving, he goes behind this glass thing and he goes behind the door. And I was looking at him. It was a very emotional visit. I mean, I was depressed for months after this thing because I didn't realize what prison was. And when I saw him, what I saw was this divide, and this divide over the ages. This has been how we've dealt with people for all eternity. There is somebody in charge. They lock people up. I'm revolted by that. I think it's completely inhumane. And with all these advancements that we have, I'm not saying, give the molesters a cookie, but I don't think that somebody sells a teaspoon of cocaine should go to jail for 40 years. I don't think that somebody who makes a free market website in his 20s, allegedly, right, should go to jail for double life plus 40 years and have an $183 million fine on top of it. For building a website, these are all nonviolent crimes. These weren't people, like grabbing children off the street. There's so many things that don't get prosecuted. And then these kinds of things do. And they're basically, this is a political message. They don't want dissent. They don't want freedom. And Ross was their fall guy. And, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but during his trial, there was a lot of corruption that was not allowed to come out. And since he filed his appeal, even more corruption has come out where they have proof that there was evidence tampering. This digital evidence, which should have never been admitted because digital evidence is able to be manipulated, they have now found that this digital evidence has been manipulated. So why is this guy still in jail? Because you're not supposed to have manipulated evidence in order to convict somebody. And then, they say he was the only Dread Pirate Roberts, which is, the name of the head of the site. Well, 7 weeks after Ross was already in prison on lockdown, I mean, they put him in solitary. He's still not allowed to use any internet. Somebody logged in as Dread Pirate Roberts. So if he's the only Dread Pirate Roberts, how did he do that from prison? obviously that means that there is another DPR, which is what they were trying to establish, and they were railroaded in the court. They weren't able to do that. So, it's not even a matter of, is this punishment too harsh, but did this person even get a trial? And I would rather see, there's some sort of an old expression, but basically it's, 100 people go free if criminals go free, because you want to kind of maintain the honesty and the integrity of the judicial system. And if we don't have justice in this country, how different are we from, the old commie days and these regimes that are kind of disgust people, right? We are not the land of the free. We do not have justice. And there's nothing just about putting somebody in prison for 20 years for some stupid, idiotic thing. And that's what they do. They just hand it out. They're like, oh, jail, 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 jail. People don't even go to trial. 95% of people are not even going to trial. They're all taking plea bargains. That's crazy. I thought that we were supposed to go to, a judge, there's a jury of your peers. And when people try and talk about jury nullification, they're blocked from that. It's not encouraged. When Ross was in trial, they were trying to hand out pamphlets about jury nullification. And the judge wanted to shut all that down because she doesn't want people to know about that. That's our right. The jury nullification is the last way to check the overreach of powers, right? It's the power of the people to say, yes, this is the law, but this law is immoral and we're not going to put it through. And then people can nullify they could exonerate the person. I'm not really sure the technical term, but basically they can help the person who's basically being on trial for something that's BS. But we're not even allowed to talk about that. So I think that these are things that really affect a lot of different people. And between my advocacy, and other people who are working really hard to bring attention to these issues, plus the use of blockchain in order to provide judicial services that are more transparent and that are more accurate and are more easily enforced without needing to go to court, which takes 2 years to freaking get a court date. There is some progress being made, I hope.
Yeah, and those old systems that you referenced, it just had to be a little bit complicated to figure out what actually happened, and the simplest thing to do is just go, we don't even want to hear this, just take them away. Next.
Totally.
Yeah.
But this is somebody's life that you're playing around with. We were talking about the people being nasty and thoughtless on the internet. Well, this is almost like an extension of that, right? I don't like that. I'm not going to take time to understand it. The nuances are too complicated. Just throw them in jail. I mean, you can't do that. You can't just ruin families, because it's not just the criminal. It's a multi-generational effect, because when those children have their kids, they're going to be messed up from this experience, and then those kids are going to be messed up, and it's just going to keep going.
Wow. Extraordinary. It's kind of it's sad, It really is.
It's a bummer, but I'm very invigorated by my ability to speak out about it, and I want to see more people, that can hear my message, and hopefully I can have an impact. I don't want to sound vain or silly or anything, but I have a very deep set of convictions that my role on this planet is to help shed light on some of these horrors. And I feel very lucky that I have been able to do so far, and that I can, allow other people to get a peek into the window and hopefully come into the light. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And art is very, very powerful. And, I feel very blessed to be able to do it. And it also gives me a sense of purpose, so it doesn't leave me in despair. As I said before, when I went and visited Ross, there were 2 months where anytime anybody complained about anything, I lost it on them, because I was like, you don't even know how good you have it. But it was great to be able to turn that pain into something positive, and to be a voice, not just for him, but for all these other people. There's a lot of poor people in the prison system. All these kids that are from the ghetto. Who's going to advocate for them? They're not lucky like Ross is. Ross's mother, Lynn, is able to go and talk about this stuff. And, she's an amazing speaker. But these kids, they're not going to have like a mom that's going to be able to go out and go on a tour and talk about their issue. No, nobody's speaking out for them. Everybody just puts, oh, they're all criminals. They're all lousy people. No, there's a lot of good people in prison. There are a lot of bad people too, but it's not like it is on TV.
I got to tell you, the fact that you're out there with your attitude and with your art and you're innovating and you're doing all these things. I mean, this really gives me hope that the society, the civil society. Of course, I'm not sure what civil society means. Something else now, I think. But anyway, let's just say the civilization may have a chance. Now,
thank you. I appreciate that, because it's nice to have appreciation for that kind of thing.
Well,
because some people think I'm nuts, so it's good to find my tribe, so to speak.
Some people think what?
Think I'm nuts, like some of my friends, they don't have my views. They think about TV shows and stuff. So, it's good to find people that understand the weight of what I'm trying to do. And, I'm trying to contribute to a whole bunch of people. I mean, I'm just one of the people, but it can get a little bit lonely sometimes, I guess.
Well, let me ask you this: are you getting support from other artists, or are you out there on your own?
I have a lot of good friends in the libertarian space that are artists. There's not that many, I guess, but we all kind of support each other. But I haven't really made a big push to evangelize to regular artists yet. I mean, other than just regular interpersonal, experiences. The goal of Tatiana Coin and the campaign is, sure, we're trying to raise $15,000, right? People can donate, they can buy Tatiana coins and they get something for it, whatever. But really, it's going to serve as almost an advertisement to other artists. So instead of trying to talk to them about this, I'm going to show them, right? Don't tell, show them. So it's critical to me to have this campaign be a success, because the idea, I think, is very good. But it will seem as if it didn't succeed and the idea is bad if I don't raise the money. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I do raise the money, then they're going to be like, okay, well, she raised the money, that part works. And then I can bring them along the journey of how all that other stuff functions. But my artist evangelization, which is, a huge passion of mine, is to help other artists. I feel a strong sense of affinity for my people. Is to kind of bring them into this and educate them. So that'll be probably around March or April when the album is out. Part of the thing that we're funding is putting out the record and also going on tour and going out and talking to people and showing them and walking them through it, but giving them something that they can touch, something that they can experience, versus talking about it in some wishy-washy blockchain stuff. They're not going to understand that. I want to say, look, all you have to do is click. And then you have to click here. And then look what happens. And then they're going to get it a lot faster than if I'm just kind of talking about it.
So that's the old nobody wants to be first, but everybody wants to be next.
I'll be first. I'm taking the heat. I think that there are a lot of challenges with being first. So many more than what I had expected. I mean, it was just, I remember calling up Adam, my partner on this. I'm like, Adam, why is this so hard? Nobody told me that we were going to have to deal with this. And that's the nature of being a pioneer. You get to say that you're a pioneer and people think that you're cool, but then you have to, live in the wilderness and, sometimes you go hungry and sometimes you're cold and sometimes it rains on you. But at the end of the day, hopefully you get to forge a path for everybody. And I think that that's, something that I'm telling you, when I was a kid, I listened to Cat Stevens' Peace Train. And isn't it remarkable that so many years later, that was such a pivotal moment for me, because it taught me that art could be more than just, we're having a good time, whatever. Nobody cares about that, right? It was about pushing society. It was talking about peace in a way that really got people thinking about it, got people excited. And now, so many years later, that's still something that has resulted in what I do now. And hopefully my work will inspire future artists to continue to innovate and to take back the power, because I think that it's been stolen from us and our voices are no longer ours, and that's unacceptable. So, I'll take the slings and arrows, or whatever the expression is, in hopes that this will make something better for people in the future.
Yeah, I'll tell you, this guy's. I enjoyed Cat Stevens. It's true. I didn't care for Bread that much. Okay, okay. Gosh, what was
Which
it?
one is that? Because I listened by the song versus by the record. You know what I mean?
The band.
So I'm not sure.
You know the band Bread?
Oh no, I don't know what Bread is. What's Bread? I thought it was an album name of Cat. I
No,
didn't know what it was.
no, it's Gosh, Did they do? Let me see something. Wait a second. I mean, some of the lyrics were just inscrutable. It was cool. It was meaningless, but it was cool. And I suppose
Sometimes that works.
they're
Not
in.
everything has to have meaning,
Oh yeah.
It could be some sort of a weird thing, but it should be expressive and have emotion.
What about Sugarloaf?
I don't know Sugarloaf.
Oh yeah, you got to hear Green Eyed Lady, Ocean Lady. That's an
Oh, I
example.
know that song.
Yeah.
Of course. See,
yeah.
I told you I know songs, Forget the artist. It's all about the song.
Let's see here. Bread's hits were, let's see, Everything I Own. I want to. Oh yeah. I want to make it with you. I'd really like to make it. You've heard that one. Mellow, soft rock. It don't matter to me. You've heard It Don't Matter to Me.
Yeah, I think so.
And the Guitar Man. The Guitar Man. Yeah, yeah. It's it'll just lay you back into a sort of a mescaline-esque state of euphoria. If you listen to 3 songs in a row, you won't be able to do anything for the rest of the day. But Bread and Sugarloaf. Yeah, you got to add that to your collection of
I'm going to write it in our conversation.
retro
so I
Stone
remember.
Age soft rock hits. Yeah, Cat
Okay,
Stevens.
cool.
I can't figure out what religion did he went to Islam, but which Islam is he a part of?
I mean, definitely the good one. Cat Stevens is like the most pure-hearted artist that I know of, actually. I adore him. My engineer, he and producer and also very good friend, Will Hensley, he worked with Cat Stevens back when we used to work together in the recording studio. And this was for the album maybe about 8 years ago, something like that he came in. And I kept trying to get into the room and I wouldn't, I was like, do you guys need anything? Do you want me to bring something in? Because I just wanted to see Cat Stevens. And afterward I had asked Will, I said, Will, what was it like? Was he the guru? He said that he was literally the most amazing artist that he ever worked with. And Will's worked with a ton of super famous people. He said that he had this, the beauty of his soul was just very, very apparent. So maybe one day I'll get to, actually that would be my dream concert. If I could open up for Cat Stevens, I would go nuts. I could die a happy girl.
Yeah. No, he changed his name to Yusuf Islam.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
So,
he converted, I think, from being Greek Orthodox. So he converted, but I mean, I've never heard him preaching any hate. I find it very, because, a lot of people have a lot of problems with Islam right now. I think that, I don't really know enough about it to make a judgment call. I know lots of great Islamic and Muslim people. I don't even know the difference between the two. But I can't imagine that anything that Cat Stevens, his soul did not become black and he didn't all of a sudden start calling for the death of everybody around him. That's ridiculous. His music has been so insightful and so empathetic in its nature. I can't imagine that he would have hate in his heart,
let me ask you this. If we, I wish we could play the Bitcoin single.
Oh, that would be so cool. This would be the first time it's on the air. That would be awesome. Do we know how to do it or no? I don't know how to do it. I'm not in charge.
I mean, I know how to do it if I actually have the song. Can we get the file?
Oh yeah, we can make that happen.
Okay, cool.
Give me
1
minute. I'm going to upload it to our conversation.
Okay, if you'll get it
You
to
can't
us.
play it from a link, right?
Well, I mean, we'll incorporate it into the show here.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just email it to us.
Okay. I can email it. I thought that we were going to try and do it live. You're just going to splice it in. I get it. Okay, cool.
Well, what would be really cool is if you grabbed your guitar and just did it live.
I could do that. It'll take me a few minutes, and my voice is very hoarse today, so I don't think it's going to sound that good. But yeah, we could do that. I think the full band version will be better though, because it's the first time that anybody's hearing it. So you guys will have the exclusive, I guess. The
Okay.
debut.
All
Yeah,
right.
and it's with a full band. It sounds amazing. I mean, this record was the most supported album that I've done so far. It was really cool to do it. And Will is a magic man. He's extremely talented. So this album was done really, really pro. The mastering that we got is a really great guy named Joe Lambert. I mean, he's fantastic. So it's definitely my most sonically advanced album of my career.
Excellent. Now,
Yeah.
can you say what studio that is? That looks like an SSL board, huge. What, 128 channels, something?
I think it's a 72 channel SSL J9000. I'm 90% sure of that.
Okay.
So that recording studio is Premier Studios in New York. And I actually convinced my old boss, Sandy, to accept Bitcoin. So as far as I know, that was the first recording studio, major recording studio to accept Bitcoin, period. Definitely in New York, but I think it's overall. I don't know of any other recording studios. So yeah, I force everybody to accept Bitcoin against their will because they're like, oh, I have to download a wallet. I'm like, yes. But I wanted to kind of, use that as a way to share that with people.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you, I'm a fan. I really am, and I appreciate your sending your CDs. And
Thank you. I was wondering if you had got them because I never heard back. So I'm glad that you're listening and you're liking what you're listening to.
oh, no kidding. Well, that's on me again. It's amazing. I have no excuse. I mean, there is no excuse. I have a reason for it, but I don't have an excuse.
I don't need any cookies or anything, but I'm glad that you're liking it. That's good to hear.
Well, I got to tell you, it's just a pleasure to see you out there living your life and doing this thing and being committed to your vision of what you want to do. I mean, you're doing your own thing. You're a real individual. You know what I'm saying? Which reminds me.
I guess so.
Which reminds me of something. Well, if the members of the herd take less heat than the individuals, that's just the way it is. Say, what do you think you're doing? You're breaking conformity. You're doing something different. I mean, people are almost superstitious about things that the advent of these things is almost scary to them sometimes. It's like, well, I always say do something every day that scares you just a little bit. In my case, all I have to do is open my mouth and let the public hear it. But so that's easy. But I got to tell you, you don't know who Patrick McGoohan is, do you?
No.
Well, Patrick McGoohan, back in the Stone Age, when dinosaurs roamed the earth, when I was a kid, did a series called The Prisoner. And it was a very prophetic series. He did Secret Agent Man. It was known as Danger Man overseas, but it was Secret Agent Man.
That's my dad's favorite song. He used to sing it when I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah, Johnny Rivers did that song. And the thing is it was a warning about the total loss of privacy. They replace your name with a number, and they address you by your number, and that's all they address you by. You're under continual surveillance. If you step out of line, you go to hospital, and you just get your brain reprogrammed. And they experiment on you all the time. And they have a mindless police force that was in the form of a weather balloon that would just chase you down the street and knock you down, and you'd wind up in the nut house at the local hospital being reprogrammed. And he warned everybody in a 16 episode series, 17 altogether, because the number 16 was actually a 2-part deal. So it was 16 shows, or 17 shows, but 16 actual episodes. The last one was Fallout, Part 1 and Part 2. He tried to warn us that this is, in fact, where we're headed. He was way ahead of taking one man's mind and put it into another man's head. I mean, all kinds of things. And so then it just caused outrage that anybody would even suggest such a thing. He also put forth the assertion that when the East and the West face each other and realize that they're looking in a mirror, things are going to change. Almost like what Mr. Trump said the other day. It's like, well, there are a lot of killers out there. Well, you think our country's so innocent? I thought that
was great.
I thought that
He's
was a
really
very
dropping some truth bombs lately. I like it. I think he's hilarious. Not everything, but I think a lot of what he's doing is really good. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent. I just love it when people tell the truth.
I do too. I mean, he's just carpet bombing people with some reality, and I really like it because a lot of us on the right side of things, Um, we've been waiting for it. I mean, how long are we going to tolerate this nonsense that's backed up by hundreds of millions of dollars in mainstream media exposure? I mean, these protests, I think, would totally go away if the money and the media coverage went away.
Oh, of course. That's not even a question. I mean, they're trying to start a race war. This is they're baiting everybody into it.
Well, I must tell you that in the manner of the late Lord Patrick McGowan, you, Tatiana Moroz, have gloriously illustrated and vindicated the right of the individual to be individual, and I hereby induct you into our Order of the Arc Knights, and this assembly rises to you, Dame Tatiana.
Thank you so much. That's so sweet. I think it's, I mean, I'm so happy when people understand what I'm going for. It makes me really happy. So I really appreciate that.
Well, you've taken on one of the hardest jobs possible, and that is to improve the condition of the world and humanity in general. But there are a lot of people out there. You have more fans now than you know. And, of course, we wish you success, but I'd say it's pretty much in the bag. I think you're going to do just fine. I get a sense about this. You're going to be fine because you've got the energy, and most importantly, you've got the will. Okay?
I do. That I do. No one will ever say anything was handed to me. I worked really hard to get here and through a lot of very, very challenging things. But it's very nice to be seeing the fruits of my labor kind of blooming or whatever.
Now, a couple of things before you go, and that is,
sure.
if somebody wants the record, just in simplest terms, how do they get it?
TatianaCoin.com.
Okay.
Or they can go to my website, Tatiana Moroz, but Tatiana Coin might be easier to remember. Yeah. And everything is for sale there. They could donate. They could buy some Tatiana Coins. They could buy the albums. The album won't be available until March 31st, but if people want to support me and they want to help me get to my goal, and so, I mean, I'm a voice for everybody at this point. So if people want these ideas out there, then they can go and they can donate, or they can buy Tatiana Coins, and they could, buy whatever it is that they want, and then that'll give me the money to keep pushing forward and get the word out there. And all my social media links and everything are over there as well. And, you could find out more information at TatianaCoin.com.
Do you do Twitter at all, any of that?
I do. I tweet at Queen Tatiana, and I also have Tatiana Coin. Those are my two handles. I also have my company, Crypto Media Hub. So if people are learning, want to promote their business to the Bitcoin community, I'm happy to help them. We do marketing and PR and advertising stuff. So, yeah. And my YouTube is Forevermore Tatiana. So if people want to watch some videos and stuff like that, they can go there.
Forevermore.
Indeed.
Okay. Forevermore Tatiana.
You got it. That's the first song off of my first record, Forevermore.
All right. Now, you've got 2 albums out now, and the new one comes out March 31, right?
You got it. So there was the original debut, Tatiana, then there was Love and Liberty, and now the new one, Keep the Faith.
I just, in my head, I see, this is just, it's nice to see this movement. You've really, look, I'm not trying to schmooze you here. I'm serious about this.
I'll take the compliments.
This is an opportunity to return to those days where you really had enough time to just relax and just listen to some nice music. I'm using the word nice, like somebody serves you a delicious, French meal, and it's just, and you can just, that's really nice. I mean nice like that. I don't mean just kind of okay or pretty okay. I mean nice. And I'm just getting warm summer days, and maybe a 69 Torino in perfect condition is parked over there with the 428 motor, and you can see it. And the window's open. You don't have to keep the AC on because it's hot, but it's that comfortable hot. And you just listen to some friendly music that's good for you, that reminds you that you really are a free thinking, and actually, at least for now, physically free, sentient being who can do things, and you can influence things, you can change things for the better, and it's worth doing, and you want to do it, you feel good about doing it, you're inspired to do it. I mean, I just kind of see a return to those kind of days when people they might not have fully understood the movement, they just knew that they were a part of it. And being a part of something, maybe that's what's making people so crazy. Maybe some of these protesters on the left side of things, and maybe just leftists in general, feel so left out of a life that they sense is out there, but they've never been able to catch hold of it, that this is the only thing that they can catch hold of. And so they do. And maybe otherwise they wouldn't. Maybe it's possible that they will change their minds, enough of them to neutralize that movement and through recognizing that it's not constructive. It's not the road to prosperity, production, or even happiness. It's just misery and angst. Because if they carry on in this direction, nothing is ever going to be right.
Yeah, I think we're at a very pivotal point in time. It's very exciting. It's very scary, but I think that it could tip one way or the other. None of us really know what's going to happen, but I believe that we're going to tip the scales in favor of the light. That's my goal.
We have to.
And, with what you guys are doing over there and educating people every day with truth bombs and, my songs, I think, there's a lot of good people out there working towards something good. And we got to ignore the racket that the people, and also maybe have empathy for those folks because they think that they're doing something good. I think they're driven by that same desire to do good. Not all of them, because some of them are paid or whatever, disruptors. But I think a lot of people, we should be compassionate toward them, but bring them into the light and help them understand things a little bit better. And I don't know, maybe we could save this place after all.
Yep, I think you're right. I have no doubt that we will win. It's just going to take a while. God bless you.
Yeah.
And have a great weekend.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a really great time.
We'll stay in touch, and you just don't go change it.
I'll send you a new record. As soon as it comes out, you'll get one of the very first copies.
Excellent, and we'll play it on the show.
Oh, that sounds great. And I'll send you a song.
All right, now. Take care.
Thanks. I know.
Bye-bye. Isn't she cool? I think she's just a cool girl. Cool young woman out there kicking it. And that's what it takes. It's one thing to sit around and talk about it. We can talk about things until Hades freezes over. It won't change anything really necessarily. It's when we actually put these words into action. And that's why we are here. And that's what you do. And the evidence that you are doing it is everywhere. Isn't it fun to pick up that other people are talking about the things that we talk about and share on the program here? The wonderful guests. I'm using the word wonderful guests that come on and just go, okay. And I tell them, you're at liberty to say whatever you want, which the unsaid part is, it's all on you. So if it's real, let's go. If it's not real, everybody's going to find out. So let it rip. And they do. And change is taking place. It is going to be rough. These mugs on the left are, they got a set. That's one thing, I've mentioned this before. That's one thing that will, I learned a lot flying airplanes. I really did. And it wasn't all about just flying the airplanes. It was more like about flying your life. Things like, what are the next 2 things that I need to do? Things about regarding planning ahead, management of systems, energy, fuel, all of these things. And one thing in particular is this thing called a set that you get in your mind. You cannot allow yourself to get into a mind set, because once it's set, it's just like concrete. That's it. You can't change it now. And people do that. They can change it, but they're oblivious to their capability of changing it because they're stuck in the set. It's like once you're in, unless something alerts you, something inside you alerts you to the fact that, wait a second, I'm stuck in a death spiral set right now. You're gonna auger into the ground. You have to be prepared to break the established protocol in order to change anything. And the biggest set that people experience is fear on one level or another. So, fear nothing. Eyes up. Always. Sharpen those critical thinking skills. Be discerning. Don't back off. Besides, we have nothing else to do that's more important than what? Preserving our freedom and increasing the chances that freedom will be preserved for the generations who come behind us. Believe it or not, there are some young people out there that actually look to us for guidance. So let's make sure that we give them proper guidance that they can build on and carry this civilization forward into the future. We're in dangerous times now. China's getting edgy. North Korea's getting edgy. We know that North Korea is just a proxy for China. We know that. We know China's economy is in trouble. We know that we've got trouble here with this left-wing progressive nonsense, judges legislating from the bench. That's not their job. We must be prepared to get a little bit ugly. It doesn't have to be violence. It just has to be adamance. This is the year of intolerance. I declared it at the beginning of the year. I re-declare it now. This is the year that we decide what we will not tolerate. We simply will not tolerate it. And notice how, well, you can't do this to us. You can't do this. You can't deport that. You can't demand that we have voter identification. And we're saying, well, sorry, but we do demand it. And we're not going to tolerate the way things have been done. We're changing it. Well, now, if you put it that way, maybe we can talk. Yeah, that's what I thought. Have a good weekend. Talk to you tomorrow night on ARC Midnight, 10 to midnight, Central Time, on radio station KLIF 570 AM. Okay? Okay, where was I? Oh, yeah, be seeing you.